One joke, that's all it took. The cameras were rolling. The vibe felt loose. Teammates laughing. Side conversations. The kind of off-season moment that usually disappears as quickly as it happens. Nothing serious, nothing tense, just background noise and casual banter. And then it shifted. Cam Scatibo leaned in with what sounded like a joke. A quick jab, a comment about being broke. A line aimed straight at ShedeurSanders. It was supposed to land like playful trash talk. Something light, something funny. But it didn't. The room didn't erupt in laughter. No one doubled over. No one clapped. Instead, there was that split-second pause that feels longer than it is. The kind of silence you can almost hear buzzing. Smiles faded. A few eyes widened. Someone looked away. That's when you knew. Because in moments like this, it's not just about the words. It's about timing, tone, energy, and something in that delivery felt off. Not competitive, not playful, personal. Shedeur didn't jump. He didn't bark back. He didn't even rush to respond. He just looked at him. Calm, still, unbothered. And somehow, that made it louder. There's a certain power in not reacting, in letting a comment hang in the air long enough for everyone else to process it. Shedeur's expression didn't crack. No forced grin, no defensive posture, just a measured stare and the faintest hint of a smile. Not friendly, not amused. More like, you sure you wanted to say that? That's when the tension really set in. Because now it wasn't just a joke, it was a moment, a test, and every camera in the room was capturing it from every angle. In today's NFL, those seconds matter more than the scoreboard. One clip can define the narrative for weeks. And this one had all the ingredients. A rising star with massive attention around his name. A bold comment that felt slightly out of pocket. An awkward silence that spoke louder than any comeback ever could. What made it hit harder was the contrast. Scatibo looked animated, almost performing. Shedeur looked grounded, centered, like he understood something bigger was unfolding. The energy had flipped. What was meant to shrink him seemed to elevate him instead. The more the comment lingered, the more it exposed the imbalance in the room. One player trying to land a punch, the other refusing to swing back. And that's when people watching started asking questions. Was it just harmless banter? Or did something deeper slip out in that moment? Because sometimes a joke isn't just a joke. Sometimes it reveals intention. And sometimes, without even realizing it, the person throwing the shot ends up spotlighting themselves instead. The laughter never came. But the clip, that traveled fast. And what happened next would turn a simple off-season exchange into a full-blown firestorm. It was supposed to be funny. That's what made it worse. Cam Scatibo didn't step up like he was starting a fight. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't visibly angry. He delivered the line casually, almost like it was just another piece of locker room banter. A quick shot about ShedeurSanders being broke, wrapped in a half-smile, dressed up as humor. But something about it didn't sit right. The tone felt forced, the timing felt calculated, and the reaction almost non-existent. There's a big difference between competitive trash talk and a comment that makes the room freeze. This one froze it. You could see it in the body language. A few players shifted in their seats. Someone let out a nervous laugh that died instantly. No one piled on. No one echoed the joke. That silence said everything. Because when a joke lands, it spreads. It grows. Other people add to it. The energy lifts. But when a joke fails, it hangs there, awkward and exposed, waiting for someone to rescue it. No one did. And that's where things started to unravel. The comment wasn't about performance. It wasn't about a bad throw or a missed read. It went straight to money, draft position, value, the kind of angle that feels less like friendly competition and more like a subtle attempt to diminish someone's status. Some viewers later argued it was harmless. Just guys talking. That football culture has always included sharp words and ego battles, and that's fair. Trash talk is part of the game. But this felt different. It felt personal. In today's NFL, especially in the era of nil deals, endorsements, and brand building. Calling someone broke isn't just about cash. It's about perception. It's about influence. It's about where someone stands in the hierarchy of attention. And whether Shedeur meant to or not, the comment came off less like confidence and more like comparison. Comparison can be dangerous. Because the moment you try to shrink someone publicly, you risk revealing your own insecurities. And that's what many fans online started pointing out. They weren't just reacting to the words. They were reacting to the energy behind them. It felt like a reach, like a swing that didn't connect. And the cameras caught all of it. That's the brutal part about modern sports culture. There's no private moment anymore. Every smirk, every eye movement, every awkward pause becomes evidence. The clip didn't need dramatic music or commentary. The silence did the heavy lifting. Shedeur may have thought he was scoring a quick laugh, maybe even establishing dominance in the room. Instead, it looked like he misread it completely. Because the joke didn't elevate him. It isolated him. And while he was still talking, trying to carry the moment forward, the narrative was already slipping out of his control. What he thought would make him look bigger started making him look pressed. And the real shift, it wasn't in what he said next. It was in how Shedeur responded without saying much at all. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't interrupt. He didn't even rush to defend himself. ShedeurSanders just stood there. And somehow, that was louder than anything he could have said. When the broke comment landed and the room tightened up, all eyes naturally shifted to him. That's the instinct in moments like that. People don't focus on the one who throws the jab. They watch the target. They wait for the reaction, the comeback, the explosion. But it never came. Instead, Shedeur paused, calm, measured, almost analytical. His face didn't twist in anger. He didn't force a grin to smooth things over. He just looked at Shedeur with a steady expression that felt intentional. It wasn't passive. It was controlled. There's a big difference. Control in a public moment is power, especially when cameras are rolling and clips can travel in seconds. Shedeur understood that. You could see it in the way he let the silence breathe. He didn't scramble to win the exchange. He let the exchange expose itself. Then came the faint smile. Not friendly, not playful. The kind of smile that says, "You just showed your hand." That single expression flipped the energy, because when someone tries to embarrass you publicly, they expect resistance. They expect noise. They expect you to fight back so it becomes a back and forth. But silence forces the spotlight back onto the person who spoke. Now the attention wasn't on whether Shedeur was broke. It was on why Shedeur felt the need to say it. That's what made the moment shift. Shedeur didn't defend his value. He didn't list achievements. He didn't mention endorsements or contracts. He didn't need to. His posture alone communicated confidence. Shoulders relaxed, eyes steady, no panic. And that's rare. A lot of young players would have jumped at the chance to clap back. A sharper insult, a louder tone, something viral. But viral reactions can be risky. They can make you look emotional, reactive, unstable. Shedeur chose composure. And composure travels differently online. Within minutes of the clip surfacing, fans weren't praising a savage comeback. They were praising restraint. They were pointing out how unbothered he looked, how the moment seemed to roll off him. Some even said that reaction alone showed who was comfortable in their position and who was. Of course, others debated it. Some viewers claimed he should have fired back harder. That silence can look weak in competitive spaces. But the overwhelming tone leaned one way. He didn't need to prove anything. And that's the key. When someone is secure, they don't scramble to validate themselves. They let time do it. They let perception settle. They let the other person talk themselves into a corner. That's exactly what happened. Shedeur kept the energy up. Shedeur stayed still. One was pushing. One was grounded. And in a room full of cameras, grounded wins. Because in today's game, it's not just about what you say. It's about who looks in control while saying nothing at all. The clip hit the timeline, and everything changed. Within minutes, what felt like an awkward in-room exchange turned into a full-scale online debate. Slow-motion replays, zoomed-in reactions, body language breakdowns, captions in bold. The internet didn't just watch the moment, it dissected it. And just like that, the real game began. Because in today's NFL, the officials aren't the only ones keeping score. Social media acts like a referee with unlimited angles and zero mercy. Once that broke comment started circulating, fans picked sides instantly. Some said it was harmless locker room talk, competitive guys poking at each other, nothing more. Others weren't buying it. They pointed to the silence, the tension, the way the room shifted. They argued it didn't feel like friendly trash talk. It felt targeted, personal, like someone trying to chip away at a rising name. That's when the narrative split in two. On one side, defenders of Cam Shedeur claimed people were being too sensitive. That football has always been built on ego and sharp words. That if you can't handle a joke, you're in the wrong sport. On the other side, supporters of ShedeurSanders saw something different. They saw a young quarterback who didn't need to bark back because his position already spoke for him. They saw composure under pressure, and they respected it. But here, where it gets interesting, the internet doesn't just react, it amplifies. Clips were reposted with dramatic captions. Reaction videos popped up within hours. Comment sections filled with theories. Some fans even speculated that Shedeur might have been trying to spark controversy on purpose, knowing how quickly moments like this trend. That part remains speculation, of course. There's no proof of intent. But in the attention economy, people question everything. Was it a joke, a calculated move, a frustration leak? Once those questions start circulating, they don't stop. And suddenly, the focus wasn't even on the original comment anymore. It was on image, perception, who looked secure, who looked pressed. Memes started appearing. Freeze frames of Shedeur's calm expression. Side-by-side comparisons of reactions. The silence became symbolic. It wasn't just a pause anymore, it became the moment. That's the power shift. In past eras, this exchange might have faded away after a day. Maybe a small headline, maybe a brief mention on a sports talk show. But now, the internet keeps receipts. Every frame becomes evidence. Every smirk becomes analysis material. And once the crowd decides who won the moment, that narrative sticks. Shedeur may have thrown the first shot, but the timeline decided who took the hit. That's the new reality for athletes. You're not just playing against opponents. You're playing against perception, against clips, against millions of opinions forming in real time. The room had gone silent. But online, it was anything but quiet. And what people started saying next would push this far beyond a simple off-season exchange. The game changed quietly. Not with a rulebook update, not with a dramatic press conference. It shifted when attention became currency. There was a time when a player's value in football was almost entirely tied to one thing: his contract, what round you were drafted in, the size of your signing bonus, the guarantees on paper. That was the scoreboard off the field. But that model is outdated. Today, influence moves faster than any contract negotiation. One viral moment can build more leverage than a stat sheet ever could. One strong personal brand can outgrow a rookie deal before it even expires. And that's the shift Cam Shedeur's comment completely ignored. Calling someone broke only works if money is limited to a paycheck. It's not anymore. We're in the nil era. Name, image, likeness. Players aren't just athletes, they're media platforms. They're walking brands with audiences that stretch beyond Sunday games. Endorsements, merchandise, social media reach, digital content, appearances, it's an ecosystem now. And ShedeurSanders has been building inside that ecosystem for years. This isn't accidental. Growing up around high-level football and branding, he understood early that exposure isn't something to run from. It's something to manage. Every interview, every camera angle, every viral clip. It all feeds the machine. That's why companies like Nike and Gatorade don't just look at touchdown totals. They look at engagement, personality, cultural pull. Can this player move product? Can he trend? Can he hold attention? Those questions matter just as much as arm strength. There's also been buzz, framed carefully, because deal details are rarely public, that Shedeur structured certain endorsement agreements with long-term leverage in mind. Some reports have suggested clauses that go beyond flat payments, potentially including performance incentives or equity-style components. While exact specifics aren't confirmed publicly, the conversation alone signals something important. He's thinking beyond quick checks. Ownership mindset over employee mindset. That's the difference. So when someone tries to reduce that to broke, it feels disconnected from reality. Draft position doesn't cap earning potential anymore. It sets a starting line. After that, visibility takes over. Look around the league. Some late-round picks have massive followings. Some high draft selections fade quietly. The hierarchy isn't fixed by draft night anymore. It's shaped by relevance. And relevance can't be forced. It's built. That's why the moment hit differently. The insult leaned on an old-school measurement of value. Contract size, round number, immediate payout. But the modern NFL runs on a different scoreboard, one powered by reach, narrative, and long-term positioning. The real flex today isn't just how much you signed for. It's how much you can generate beyond it. And whether people like it or not, that's the direction football is moving. Money used to end the debate. Big contract, you win. Higher draft pick, you matter more. Bigger signing bonus, case closed. But that equation doesn't hold up anymore. Because a paycheck is finite. Influence is. A rookie contract has a number attached to it. Clear, public, easy to compare. Fans argue about it, media ranks it. Players feel it. But influence moves differently. It doesn't show up on salary cap sheets. It doesn't expire after 4 years. And it doesn't shrink just because someone says it should. That's the gap people are starting to understand. A paycheck rewards performance within the system. Influence creates leverage outside of it. When a player has real pull, real engagement, brands notice. Media platforms call. Appearances multiply. Merchandise sells without needing a playoff run. And suddenly, the income streams don't rely on a single team decision. That's power. ShedeurSanders represents that shift whether critics like it or not. He isn't just evaluated as a quarterback. He's evaluated as a presence. His name trends. His interviews circulate. His highlights get reposted beyond football pages. That attention has value. And attention compounds. Some players grind quietly and cash checks. Nothing wrong with that. But others understand that every moment in front of a camera is an asset. Every viral clip can turn into a partnership. Every headline can convert into long-term brand equity. That's influence. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Influence can outgrow a paycheck fast. You can sign a solid rookie deal and still have limited visibility. Or you can sign the same deal and build an audience that multiplies your earning power outside the locker room. Same contract, different ceiling. That's why the broke comment felt outdated. It assumed the only scoreboard that matters is payroll. But modern athletes don't operate on one scoreboard anymore. They operate in ecosystems, social media, sponsorship markets, cultural relevance, streaming platforms, apparel drops, licensing. The paycheck is step 1. Influence is step 2. And step 2 lasts longer. Some fans push back on this idea. They argue football should stay about football, performance first, brand second. That debate isn't going away, but the reality is already here. The most visible players shape conversations even when they're not throwing touchdowns. That visibility becomes leverage in negotiations. It creates bargaining power. It opens doors after retirement. It builds insulation against bad seasons. Influence protects you. A paycheck pays you. There's a difference. And in that viral moment, what people really saw wasn't just a failed joke. They saw a clash of mindsets, one focused on immediate numbers, the other operating in long-term positioning. One measuring value in dollars today, the other measuring value in reach tomorrow. In the old NFL, the paycheck ended the argument. In this NFL, influence might win it. Here's the question everyone keeps circling back to. Did Cam Shedeur actually cross the line? On the surface, it was just a joke, a jab, the kind of comment athletes throw around constantly. Football has always been built on ego, competition, and verbal shots. If you step into that world, you expect some heat. But this one felt different to a lot of people. Not because it was the harshest insult ever said, not because it was explosive, it was subtle, and sometimes subtle hits harder. Some viewers online felt the tone carried more weight than the words themselves. They pointed to the silence in the room, the lack of laughter, the way the energy shifted instantly. They argued that when a joke doesn't land and no one backs it up, that's usually a sign it crossed into uncomfortable territory. Others completely disagreed. They said people are overanalyzing it, that competitive environments aren't supposed to be soft, that calling someone broke isn't some deep personal attack, it's just trash talk, nothing more. And that's where the divide really sits. Intent versus impact. There's no public evidence that Shedeur meant anything beyond a joke, no confirmed backstory, no documented tension leading up to it. Anything beyond that falls into speculation, and speculation should stay exactly that, speculation. But impact doesn't always depend on intent. In today's media landscape, perception becomes reality fast. The second that clip hit social feeds, it stopped being a private exchange. It became content, and once it becomes content, it's judged differently. Some fans suggested it looked like punching up, a player trying to chip away at someone with more spotlight. That's an opinion, not a proven motive, but it spread quickly, and when narratives start forming, they stick. There's also the performance factor. Was it meant for Shedeur, or was it meant for the cameras? That's another question floating around. In podcast studios and off-season panels, bold comments trend. Calm conversations don't. The temptation to go viral is real. One sharp line can create weeks of attention. If that was the strategy, it backfired. Because instead of looking dominant, Shedeur ended up looking pressed in the eyes of many viewers. Instead of shrinking Shedeur, the moment seemed to magnify him. Still, crossing the line is subjective. For some, it's about disrespect. For others, it's about sensitivity. Football culture thrives on verbal battles, but there's a difference between competitive edge and personal undertones. Where that boundary sits depends on who you ask. What's undeniable is this: the reaction reshaped the moment. Not because of outrage alone, but because Shedeur didn't escalate it. If he had fired back aggressively, maybe it turns into equal chaos. Instead, his restraint made the comment stand alone. And when a comment stands alone without support, it feels heavier. So did Shedeur cross the line? That depends on your lens. But one thing is clear. Once the internet got involved, the line wasn't his to define anymore. This wasn't really about a joke. It wasn't even really about money. It was about attention. We're living in a different era of sports now. The scoreboard still matters, wins still matter, contracts still matter, but there's another layer sitting on top of all of it, the attention economy. And attention is ruthless. Every comment, every facial expression, every pause can become a headline. A 5-second clip can outweigh a 4-quarter performance. A moment of composure can build more reputation than a loud comeback ever could. That's the real shift. In the attention economy, the person who controls the narrative wins, not the loudest, not the richest, the most controlled. Cam Shedeur made noise. ShedeurSanders controlled the moment. That's why the aftermath unfolded the way it did. Attention works like gravity. It pulls toward tension, toward conflict, toward ego clashes. When Shedeur dropped that broke line, the gravity spiked. People leaned in, feeds refreshed, debates sparked. But attention doesn't just reward boldness. It rewards poise. When Shedeur didn't react emotionally, he redirected the spotlight. Suddenly, the focus wasn't on his status. It was on the comment itself, on the tone, on the intent, on whether it landed or failed. That's power. In previous eras, this exchange might have stayed in the room. Maybe a few teammates remember it. Maybe it fades by the next practice. Now, it becomes content, shared, clipped, reposted, analyzed by strangers who weren't even there. Athletes today aren't just competing on the field. They're competing in perception, in optics, in narrative control. The ones who understand that don't overreact. They calculate. Because every reaction feeds the machine. Anger trends, outbursts trend, but so does calm dominance. So does restraint that makes the other person look unsteady. That's the blueprint we're watching form in real time. It's not about avoiding controversy completely. That's almost impossible now. It's about surviving it without losing your footing. It's about turning a viral moment into reinforcement instead of damage. Shedeur's composure became part of his brand. Scatibo's comment became part of his storyline. That's how fast it flips. The bigger lesson is don't trash talk. Trash talk will never disappear from football. The lesson is understanding the stage you're standing on. Cameras don't blink. Algorithms don't forget. And the audience decides the winner long before the next snap. In the attention economy, silence can be louder than insults. Restraint can be stronger than retaliation. And the athlete who understands that isn't just playing football. He's playing the long game. The field is still 100 yards. But the real arena, it's everywhere your name shows up.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.